Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I'm Ben, joined as always by my partner in crime, Mr. Randy. And how are things tonight in Gaines, Vegas there, Randy? How we feeling up there?
Hey man, a lot of momentum. Feels great. Feels great. The air is cool. It's crisp. Fall is here. The Gators are taking up a lot of stock. Big win this past weekend. So
Yes,
can't
sir.
complain, brother.
Yeah, it's a fun night to do this podcast, man, for sure. This is
hmm
definitely one I'm looking forward to. Certainly some things that we'll get into, good and bad, and otherwise as we always do. But man, what a fun week to be able to do this after a win that man did that feel good to get. Oh, buddy, that was just good stuff. So as always, we'll start off here with our mission, our vision, and then we'll go through the agenda real quick. So on my two bits, our mission is to provide factual analysis of all things Gator football. Our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of the film, and while we may express opinion, it should always be based in fact. And we will also evaluate the strategy and tactics we saw, as well as observation of player personnel decisions and on the field execution. So for our agenda, we have to start things off the Oh My section in honor of Mr. Mick Hubert there for the exciting plays we saw during the game. We'll then move on to our Chomp segment, talk a little about the offense and how we got out there and chomped this week. Then we'll move on to Gator Bait, which is going to be our defensive segment, go through a high-level review of things that we saw on defense. Then we'll talk about our beefs for the week in the visor throw segment and some of the issues that we may have had with the team or perhaps the game itself. We then talk a little bit about recruiting at a very high level in our hatchling segment. Then we'll talk culture of the team and how things are progressing in that way and the pride of the sunshine. And then we'll do an officiating review. It's going to be fun again tonight. Of Move Back, You Suck is the name of that section. And then finally, we'll wrap things up with an overview of where we think the team is. We normally play a little game of Keep It or Pitch It. We won't do that tonight because of the bye week, but we are going to do a recap of where we're standing on our season-long Keep It or Pitch It, as well as the ones from, of course, from last week. And we'll do Keep It or Pitch It again next week for Georgia when we do our bye week episode. So
Right.
with that, let's get it started. Talk to me about the Oh My and what we saw that was great this week. And there was plenty to choose from. Man, wee.
There was plenty, wasn't there? Anytime you have a win like this on the road like this and that type of environment, and to see I mean, at first I thought it was a Big Ten shootout, but outside of that, I'm gonna I'm gonna
Big
start
12,
off with
Big 12 maybe.
Big 12, 10, 12, whatever they are, they're losing ground fast. Um, first one is the all hands team welcomes Khalil Jackson for
Yeah,
a
buddy.
phenomenal snag. Nice dive. Now, again, if you notice on this play, Mertz had a check, right? Could have gone across the middle, short, and then the secondary. He could have gone a little bit further, found Pearsall, but he's like, you know what? Khalil, let's connect long distance. And man, beautiful dive, arms up, right there, beautiful catch. So that was a great home. I think we would have heard Mr. Mick Hubert from a couple counties over on that one.
Yeah, buddy.
Um, Pearsall, Pearsall, and the what I like to call the Willie Mays style catch, over the shoulder, helmet back, looking around. How he found the ball, I have no idea, but he found it. Great completion, loved it. Um, the other one that I think everyone was just lost their minds over as part of that comeback is Pearsall's missed tipped, or their tip drill as they call it. Slick Rick to Tricky Trey. I believe that's what they're titling it, for the
Love it.
16-yard gain.
Love it.
Yeah, yeah. So that was good. Or as Napier, it's funny. Napier channeled his inner Spurrier in the conference. After the press conference, said, when Spurrier quoted "God smiled on the Gators" years and years ago, he kind of said that about that pass. So, and then of course Arliss Boardingham, again, all hands club. Pass a little high, but the tip, the bobble, the juggle, the stumble, but no fumble in the end zone, touchdown. So those are my big oh my's. And the last one, I'll tell you what, is I didn't have it on there, but I added it on later on. It's gonna be Mitchell. Mitchell's INT. You know what? I know Rattler was hit as he threw, but I tell you what, there's another DB that we have, a cornerback that wears the number 3 that I don't think could have caught that pass. But guess what? Mitchell went up, snagged it, got it, sealed the game. Kind of reminded me of what old man Amari Burney did last year against Utah in that first game in the end zone. So those were my 4 oh my's for the game. What you got, my man?
Oh man, I love it. Good stuff. So I think you were reading my note sheet for the first three because they're exactly the same.
Ah,
In order, no less. In order, no less. The
holy
exact same.
smokes.
Yeah, so
Unbelievable.
no, definitely that Khalil deep catch. Great catch. Really a good ball too. I mean, I know he had to dive to get it, which makes it seem like it's not a great ball, but he put it where only the receiver could get it, right? And that's what you like. That's what you like to see on those, especially on those deep passes. Is that they're hitting where they should. So kudos to Mertz on the throw too, even though it may have not been perfectly accurate. It was accurate enough, and heck of a catch by Khalil for sure. Um, then I have the Ricky over the head catch, man. Wow, that catch is not going to get near the height that the Jordan catch did, if you will. We'll call it the Jordan catch. Um, it's not going to get near the height, not near the height. But I'll tell you what, that catch might have been harder to make. Maybe not as athletic, but concentration wise, that was incredible, absolutely incredible. And then, as you said, Slick Rick to Tricky Trey, I love that. That's fantastic. We finally got a bounce to go our way. We talked about this last week, right? 9 forced fumbles, 1 recovery, right? And 2 more this game, by the way, and 1 more, though that one didn't matter because it was the last play of the game, but whatever. Um, we finally got a bounce that went our way, and man, did it go our way. That couldn't have worked out any better if we tried. Uh, maybe Ricky did try. I don't know. No, I of course know he didn't,
Yeah.
but that was really good. But then the last one I have is the game-winning touchdown that Ricky caught. Not so much necessarily just because of the catch, though. It was a nice route, nice catch. All that was clean. And obviously the oh my of the play came more because of the situational. But I got to give Mertz a ton of credit on this play. He kept his eyes low, right? Like he was going to throw to something on the side of the backfield or whatever, right up until he just turned and looked, and it was like turn, look, Ricky, open, throw. Like, I mean, it was like one motion. It was fantastic. That is exactly how you want to play that to keep that safety looked off. Man, just perfect. Absolutely perfect. I really commended Mertz on that. I thought maybe it was his best throw of the game. When you look at all the different elements that were involved in that, from his eye work, I guess you'd say, on the safety, and then the throw itself, of course, was just beautiful. So that one definitely made the list for me. Also because of the significance, of course, right? I blew up when that play happened. I was watching
Yeah.
upstairs in my house, and I absolutely lost it. It was great. Um, so yeah, so those are my oh my's for sure. Really good stuff. We could have probably picked another 4 or 5 of those, but we didn't want to drag it out too long. There were a lot of great plays this week, a lot of fun
Yeah.
stuff. Really good to see. So from there, we will move on to our chomp segment and talk a little bit of offense here. And I think we're going to have plenty to say on the offensive side of the ball. Interestingly, Mertz's QBR was only 111.72, which is actually uh, one of his lower, if not maybe even his lowest of the season. And I'm sure that goes to completion percentage. So despite his career day in yardage, obviously the completions weren't as high, and to a degree that's going to happen when you go deep. But I do think there's
Mhm.
a little to talk about there, and we'll get to that. And then the other stat, of course, we always look at is yards per carry. Yards per carry for us, taking out anything from Mertz, and we're going to do the same for Rattler in a minute. But meaning we take out any QB rushes, right? That weren't designed rushes, and there actually weren't any designed rushes in this game. So taking out those numbers, our yards per carry was 4.74. So that was our actual rushing yards per carry. So not bad, but definitely not what we want to see. We always want to be north of 5, really north of 6. So that's a little on the lower side. So that's again our stats we look at every week just for comparison purposes, and I think it's starting to give us kind of a picture of what we're starting to see. Yards per carry aren't necessarily always where we want to see them, honestly. So far this year, we're not having the success running the ball that I'd like to necessarily see us have consistently anyway. And then Mertz's numbers have been above average, to say the least. So my first note on offense after looking at those stats is, wow, what an explosion from the passing game. Absolutely phenomenal. I knew Mertz's accuracy, or I know Mertz's accuracy, excuse me, was lowered here. But overall, really good to see this offense open up. We've been talking about it. We've been calling for it. I kind of said last week that maybe we weren't going to see it, and that this is what the offense was. Well, thank you for proving me wrong, Billy. That looked a lot better as far as aggressiveness goes. It was really good. And we actually had an all pass play drive that went for a TD later in the I believe it was in the third quarter. It was
Yes.
eight passes, 0 runs. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? Like, this is Napier? Are you sure? And we weren't like, in a 2-minute drill at the end of the game either. Like, this was in like the third quarter. So that was pretty amazing. I will say Mertz's deep ball accuracy needs some work. He had some throws that were really not so great downfield. I know these are 50-50 balls. I know that, they're not always going to come down. I understand all that, but some of these throws were really not. In this game, he underthrew several times. The last game, he overthrew several times, right? So, that's still something that needs work. He needs more practice with it and everything else to kind of dial that in the way it needs to be. But hey, overall, again, I'm not complaining. I'm just an observation, right? Another observation is the O-line. This wasn't so good. Real lack of execution, in my opinion, in this game. Run blocking was average. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. Pass blocking was really not good. Way too much pressure, even when they were only rushing 4, right? Gave up way too much up the middle. Slaughter gave up a bunch of pressure up the middle. And then our tackles couldn't keep up with their edge rushers, which their edge rushers are not special at all. So that's a bit concerning when you go up against some better opponents, like we'll see in a couple of weeks, for example. Those guys on the edge are pretty dang good. They're pretty dang good everywhere on defense, right? So that's not reassuring. We got to shore that up. I hope Kingsley will get healthy, and I hope he'll be able to actually play like he did against Tennessee rather than how he did against Kentucky. Because I'd like to see him back. I think he's a key piece that we really need in there. Slaughter, again, this was not a good game. He looked fine last week against Vandy. He did not look fine this week. That was not so great. On a positive note, loved seeing Trey and Arliss involved at a good pace again. However, I am curious why Trey only played 51 of 81 snaps. Now, first of all, if you heard that right, we had 81 offensive snaps. That's phenomenal. That's something we haven't seen all year. We haven't cracked 80 all year, and then it's a big number to crack, especially with the new clock rules. But why is Trey out there for less than 2/3 of the plays on offense? Guy's incredible. Guy makes a difference. He's known as a mismatch, known as and I love the ways they incorporated him when he was out there. Hey, a lot of cool stuff. Love that he played running back at one point. Thought that was terrific. But how's he out there 51 to 81 snaps? I mean, I'm not calling for him to be out there 81, but it certainly should be in the 60s. If we got 81 plays. I just that didn't work real well for me. But I still loved his involvement and still loved seeing those guys really have just tons of success. Man, Trey is just, God, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch, man. So this is a cool little stat that I'll close out here with in my last thought. This is Napier's 10th game as a Gator head coach of us scoring more than 30 points. Now, as you all know, I do not count the bowl game because the team didn't play. So with that, we have now 19 games, under Napier's belt, and 10 of them, so more than half, we have cracked 30 points. We've given Napier a lot of grief for his offense, right, and a lot of things that he's done, but I'll got to give credit where credit's due. 30 points in more than half your games is not bad. It's not bad. There are times where I still am going to question the play calling. There are times where I'm still going to question the play design. But the way things are looking right now, I'm not going to complain about that. Over half the time you're getting over 30, not a bad deal. So that's what I got on offense. Talk to me. What's your thoughts on the Chomp segment this week?
Solid, man. Solid. I'll take it. Every day and twice on Sunday. All right. So
twice on Saturday.
On Saturday. That's right. It is the college game, not the pro game. So it should be Saturday. Fair enough. B. Touche. Hey man, rushing yards. South Carolina was allowing 141.7 on the season, and we had 71 rushing yards. No doubt. The O-line suffered with that a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong. It was nice to see it done through the air. So I like the trade-off there, but at the same time, when you have such a two-headed monster, arguably a three-headed monster like what we have there, um, it stinks that we could not get them a little bit more involved in the game to the point where we can put up triple digits when it came to overall rushing. Florida, man, Florida scored 5 on its first half possessions, 2 touchdowns, 3 field goals. Unbelievable. Mertz is still number 3 in the nation, actually, when it
Nice.
comes to completions, um, at 170 out of 223 for completion percent of 76.2. He only is right behind JJ McCarthy, right? At McCarthy at 0.782, so 78.2, and Bo Nix 0.792. 0.792 B.
Nice, nice. So I want to let me throw something out there real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, but it just made me think about something. I didn't put
Throw
this
it.
in the review, but you mentioned the yards per carry and the two-headed monster and all that stuff. It felt a little more like a one-headed monster to me. Do you think ATN's 100%? I don't think Trevor's 100% yet. I know he was hurt. I don't think he's 100%, man. I know they said he was, but he didn't look it to me.
And that's the only reason why I can consider, why Montrell got more carries, because I mean, he had a quote unquote upper body injury, right, last week. And so that was what it was, and he sat out, but maybe he's not 100%. Who knows? Maybe he felt some stiffness, some tightness, and that's why, again, Montrell took a little bit more of the load. Who knows? Who
Yeah,
knows?
I don't know either. I just curious on your thoughts on that based on what you saw.
But yeah, good point. Good point. Um, Speaking of passing, you mentioned earlier, open up the game. Uh, the Florida Gators are number 32 in passing offense in the nation at 280.4.
Oh,
Hey, I'll take it.
yeah,
Love to
for
be
sure.
better, but I'll take it. The other thing that's unique is when we talk about scoring, we talk about putting points on the board, tied for number 17 for red zone offense. 29 of 31 opportunities to score in the red zone for a score of 93.5. I did not know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, the red zone just keeps getting better. It's really actually been a vastly improved thing. We called for that play calling to change. I've been very happy with some of the play calls we've been seeing in the red zone the last few weeks.
Right. And so this is also cool, right? Mertz top 18 in passing efficiency at 163.65. Here's the comical thing. Rattler's number 19 right behind him.
Huh. Nice.
Carson ahead of him, Carson Beck, who we're going to play in 2 weeks.
Well,
Right. And
we know we're close there.
right. And then Mr. Cook out of Missouri, he's number 11 at 168.69. And Mr. Daniels from LSU, who we will also both face later this year, is number 1 at 197.74. So,
97.
Mertzy, yeah, I know. Mertzy's right there in the mix, right? The old graham cracker himself. Speaking of running, speaking of Etienne, speaking of Jennings, Louisiana, the pride, Trevor Etienne, number 31 in the nation with 5.9 yards per carry. Hmm. I believe a certain sibling said something about setting him free, letting him free. I don't know, whatever that means. So that is what it is. Pearsall, Slick Rick, 35 straight games with a reception, 8th
Yep.
longest active streak in FBS. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Congrats to you, Slick Rick. What a great transition coming over from ASU.
What a game he had, man.
What a game. What a game. I mean, the stats speak for themselves, right? 10 receptions, 166 yards, a
Yeah.
touchdown, and a 26-yard explosion. So phenomenal. Third down, I thought this was interesting. Third down conversions, right? In the first half, this is the season, including South Carolina. In the first half, we're about 49% on third down conversions. You
Yep.
want to take a wild guess what we are in the second half with third down conversions?
Very bad. I don't know the second half numbers, but I know.
I felt like that was you're channeling Dustin Hoffman. Very bad.
Yeah,
Um,
very bad.
19%. You're right, 19%.
I would have guessed sub 20 for what it's worth, but
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
that's
fair.
terrible.
Fair. So again, it is what it is. I feel like sometimes in the first half we might be playing checkers, in the second half we're playing chess. I don't know. On the road, right? 41 points. You really can't complain about 41 points on the road in a stadium like that, which allegedly, Williams Brice held on Saturday 79,247. That's a few people.
Yeah, that's
That's a
pretty
few
good
people,
turnout.
right?
Yeah,
But
they wanted this one too, so it felt good to not get it to them.
they absolutely did, which I thought was comical when you had these South Carolina fans doing the Gator chomp a little too early.
Yeah, they
Um,
were, weren't they? That's funny. I forgot about that. They were doing
oh yeah,
that little premature.
yeah, exactly. But no, 41 points on the road. We scored in every quarter, right? 48 passes to 23 rushes. Again, not as balanced or as complementary as we would like, as Billy Napes would say. But I tell you what, finding 8 different receivers, it's like, do we have any weapons? Yeah, we got 8 of them. Holy smokes, that's great. And just looking at the drives, you have 9 plays for 66 yards. You've got 10 plays for 50 yards. You have 5 plays for 82 yards. You've got 6 plays for 39 yards, multiple field goals, and just the last two, when you look at a 14 play 75-yard drive, 9 plays 75-yard drive, is just amazing to see what happened in the fourth quarter, right? So when you look at Florida's now scored 28 straight in the red zone. 28 straight possessions. They were 23 straight coming into the game. They went 5 for 5. That's 28 straight. It was really neat to see some unique design, like Etienne and the Wildcat for the 2-point.
Yeah, yeah,
So
like
that was really, really cool to see. And then the other thing too, I thought was a real key in the game that led the charge, but also the momentum, is when you look at the difference in play calling. Now, did Billy get a little bit better in this game, or was he a little bit more free? You be the judge, Gator Nation. But at the end of the day, if you look at what happened at the end of the second quarter going into halftime, how many times have we seen them just be content with a run left, run right, screen pass? But no, what did we do? We actually tried to get the ball back, and we did get the ball back with about a minute 20 to go, and we tried to score,
yep,
which was phenomenal to see.
agreed.
Again, we had a penalty. It forced us to backtrack, but Trey, right, came in, smacked it in, field goal. We go into half up 3. But that's a good momentum builder, especially when South
It
Carolina
is.
was getting the ball in the second half. And not to mention, in the fourth quarter, down by 10, 9-11 left to go. And you're getting that feeling like, holy smokes, okay, are we going to choke? What are we going to do? Are we going to consider? Let's open it up, baby, and let's
Yeah,
go. And boy, did they go. And by converting some of those big fourth downs, holy mackerel. I think that does a lot with belief. It's almost like a basketball. If you're a shooter and you're having a slump and all you need to do is see the ball go in the hoop.
yeah. I'll tell you what. I want to hear. I know what our second half third down conversion percentage is. What's our second half fourth down conversion percentage? Because that thing's got to be starting to get pretty good.
Right? If not in the 90s, so
I don't think it's quite that high. We definitely had some misses earlier in the year, but nonetheless, it's still got to be decent. It's got to be decent.
yeah, I'm not going to count, backtracking and taking a safety for sure.
Oh
But
no,
outside
no,
of
no,
that,
no. That's not. Yeah,
yeah,
that was
but
actually
outside
a
of that,
great. That was actually a great play call, though. I was kind of wondering, like, Mertz is still out there. I get you don't want to punt it, but what's he going to do? Like, is he going to take another knee? Because if he takes a knee, then they get the ball on the 1. So what are we doing? And
what is he going to do?
then he runs out the back of the. I was like, oh, that's really smart. I didn't even think of that. Like, that was brilliant.
Right. So either way, was really, really neat to see some of the different designs. Was really neat to see the quote unquote air raid get
I don't know
unleashed.
about all
So
that now.
hey, I'll tell you what, for 423 yards, which the funny part is that's a game high for Graham, right? That's a record for him.
Oh
His
yeah,
previous high passing yardage, you want to guess?
it was the Utah game, 333.
333 at Utah. So either way, for his lowest percentage completion of the year, I think we'll take the other and the
We
latter,
will.
and not to mention the win.
Yeah, we'll take that trade off every day of the week, and especially the way he played in the fourth quarter, straight clutch. He didn't miss a bunch of passes in the fourth quarter, man. He was on point, and it was
Nope.
pretty to watch. He was a little off on that carom catch. I will say that on the tip drill, as you called it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did miss that one a little bit, but hey, we got a break, and every once in a while you need a break. But otherwise, his accuracy in the fourth quarter was dynamite. I mean, it was really good.
Mm-hmm.
So good deal. All right, that everything you got?
That's it, man.
All right, good deal. Well, let's move it on to defense. Not as pretty this week. What do you got for me on the Gator bait side there, bud?
Oh man. Um, whatever South Carolina did in their bye week to prepare, well, obviously the biggest thing I think was them revamping their O-line, right?
Yes,
So that helped.
and they did.
That helped
And that should be
in a
noted because this O-line did not look like the O-line that South Carolina has put on
no,
so far this season.
no, goodness, no. No, 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 no. No, you had 3 new pieces there, people being shifted, moved, and turned. And again, kudos to them for working on that because Spencer got a lot more protection than he's gotten the beginning of the year. So on that basis, that was what it was. Having that been said, our D line, it was tough, man. It was tough because I feel like we got no pressure on Spencer, or at least not enough to get him razzled, to get him frazzled, to get him just
Rattled?
spinning. Yeah, exactly. Dare I say? I you know, Kimber versus Leggett, that was just a terrible matchup. Terrible. You know, Jalen obviously has got a lot of great talent, but at the end of the day, Leggett had his number, right? 6 receptions against Kimber, right? For 15 plus yards, 20 plus yards, just unreal.
Yeah, not all of those were Leggett, but yes, that's true.
You know, I feel like it was the secondary's worst game to date, right? Especially when you look at the fact that they didn't force an incompletion until late in the second quarter.
Yeah.
So that was tough because he got into a heck of a rhythm early, and that was really able to sustain them for his fast start. Scooby Williams. Paging Scooby Williams. I feel like he over the past couple of games he's been a little bit absent. You know, I don't. He must be
Feels
famished.
like ever since Kentucky, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's got. I haven't called out a Scooby snack. He's probably famished. I don't know. He's not been feasting at all. So I'm not sure what the deal is. I'm not sure if there's an underlying injury, whatever the case might be. But he's just not playing with as much pop as we saw him earlier, right? So having all that been said, it's still a top 20 defense, right? Allowing 312 yards a game, still a top 20, right? So Tennessee, Alabama, Texas A&M, and Georgia are ahead, right? And that's to be expected.
Yep.
When you look at first down defense, tie for number 20 in the nation, first down defense. Okay,
Yeah.
it's still top 20, right? Top 24 when it comes to passing, 187 yards a game. Great. Top 30 in scoring defense at 20 points per game. All right. So if opponents are averaging 20, we're averaging 29 and change, we're going to win a lot more. Okay. 12 in the nation, third down conversion percentage.
Yeah, really good.
Really
So
good
we
there.
did give up 50% in this game, but I think some of that was on penalty.
Sure. 23 for 78 on 29.5%. Really solid there. So that is what it is. I think it's interesting because when you look at what has happened with this defense and the transformation that it's gone through under AA, I know that most people are saying, "Oh, great, the defense, here we go again," or "Look what happened in this third down territory and back to old ways." Folks, when you look at the totality of it, the defense is scoring leaps and bounds better in certain categories compared to last year, and not to mention the past 3 years.
Agreed.
And so when you look at that and the fact that we're giving up almost 130 yards less per game, I mean, that right there shows you that something's working, something's clicking. Now, true, guess what? Not everything is clicking the way that we probably thought it would, but the other thing you've got to understand is how many players did we lose, right? How many players did we lose to?
And how young are we? Man, there's a lot of youth on that field.
Right?
So,
extremely young. So
yeah,
having that been said, and the other thing that I had talked about before was when you look at what we've done in totality, my main thing is, can this defense continue to feed off of those good things? Can this defense continue to come together? They're a young group. They have a lot to learn. They don't have a lot of mileage, right? Not a lot of game experience. No problem. But when we've seen some of the things that we have seen and some of the plays and some of the positioning and the speed and everything else, again, there's nowhere to go but up. But the catch is, can we get to that position in just a quicker pace? Just a quicker pace, right? So that's it for me. And outside of that, just a big shout out to Shamar James, who led us again in tackles, had 8 tackles in the game, 5 solo, then a couple assisted. And then of course Jaden Hill. Jaden Hill actually had a pretty good game. We look for the tackles perspective, 6 solo tackles there. We had a Jake Pyburn setting, a sighting. Really good to see him get in the backfield and take down
Yeah, it was a nice
Rattler one of
play.
the few times we did, right? And then outside of that, Mitchell got an interception. I mean, hopefully that gives him some confidence to say, you know what, go be a ball hawk. So, anyways, that's what I've got for Gator Bait, my man.
All right, I like it. I like it. Mine's going to be pretty short and sweet this week. I think what you said really surmises a lot of what I'm going to say. Just in
Okay.
a little different way, but very very similar. And I think the point there is more or less the same. So first things first, our weekly stats. So for the first time since we've been doing this to start the year, the opposing quarterback had a better QBR. And again, this is NFL QBR. I didn't say it earlier, but this is NFL QBR that we use because we like the rating scale better. And Rattler was pretty nasty. He was 135.14. That's one of the highest numbers that I've seen on that scale. Remember, it only goes to 150. Is it 158.3 or 153.8? I can't remember now. Either way,
I think 150 up there.
it's pretty up there. It's a pretty darn good number. So that's not what you want to see, obviously, and I think that goes to some of the stuff you were talking about with the secondary and not looking so great. But it's also, I think, pretty unquestionably the best quarterback we played so far this year. So I think that is something to keep in mind as well. But you still want to do better than that. Yards per carry, 5.04. Again, we took Rattler out because his carries were not really carries per se. They were scrambles, right? So yeah, he got the yardage, and I know they count as carries on the stat sheet, but it wasn't a running play. We want to see how the defense is defended against running plays. Now, if we have a running quarterback, we'll factor that in. But in this case, we took them out completely. Whereas last week we just took out sack yardage. This week we took out everything. Took out the position as a whole. So 5.04 when you don't have his, scramble stuff in there. So continue to struggle to play consistently well on the road. I feel like especially on defense. Utah really wasn't bad, but backup quarterbacks, it wasn't their full strength team, right? So I don't know if we're really, as good there as we might appear to be. The other 2 road games, man, defense just hasn't been very good. It's interesting you were mentioning Scooby. A quick thought I had on that while you were talking about it. I wonder if Scooby's confidence got rattled in that Kentucky game. He hit a lot of wrong gaps. I guarantee you he got called out in the film review because that is something that I know Armstrong is doing. It's evident because mistakes are getting fixed, and that doesn't happen if you don't call stuff out, right? And I wonder if his confidence got a little rattled because he looked really good to start the season, and he doesn't look really good anymore. He doesn't look bad, but he's just kind of there. He's not making a ton of plays anymore. So hopefully he can get that confidence back on the bye week here and really come out swinging against Georgia. We'll see. But we did have a few more missed tackles. It was actually still pretty good. I think you saw both 7 and 8 for that stat, but which is really not bad, especially for a road game. But it is still a few more than what we've been kind of averaging at home.
Right.
But really, that's not bad, so I can't complain about that. But again, we had linebackers, and Scooby was one of them, not filling the gap quickly enough in the run game at times. Right? They did, especially to start the game. They ran some counters, Florida's kryptonite, right? And it worked. We were not positioned the way we should be. So while we were better against the counters last week against Vandy, we did not do as well this week. So again, execution on the road. It's not that they were in the wrong position. It's not that they were being coached to be somewhere they shouldn't, right? Scheme is solid pretty much always from Armstrong. It's just those differences we see in execution. And again, is some of that up and down just from being a really young unit? I think it very well could be. I think they're still learning. I think they're still getting better. They're being asked to do a lot of really complicated stuff they were not being asked to do under the previous regime, right? A lot of different formations, a lot of different positioning, a lot of different schemes, even on, multiple sides of the field on the same play. So, you're talking about some really high level stuff that's going on here. And there's going to be a learning curve with that. Let's be real. A lot of freshmen out there, a lot of redshirt freshmen, redshirt sophomore, true freshmen, right? We're young, pretty much across the board. So, we'd have to keep that in mind. I did like that we held South Carolina to 15 less plays than what we had. I think that's terrific, but we gave up far too many big plays on some of those snaps. 6 of 11 drives they had resulted in scores, and 5 of those scores were TDs. That's not what you want, right? Not on that kind of percentage of drives, right? We did stop them 5 times, but they also, you know, scored 6 and 5 of them were touchdowns. That's not what you want, right? No question about that. So we played a fair amount of man coverage as well, which actually I think was probably a good thing. This team, any team really is going to have a tougher time against man if it's played well. Again, our execution just wasn't really there. We got burned on it a lot more than I would have liked to see, especially since in most cases I saw decent coverage. There were exceptions, right? Kimber getting burned on that one deep ball to Leggett. But, I still saw the defender in pretty good coverage in most cases. We just weren't always making the play. We weren't always getting our hand in there to break it up or whatever the case may be. So to your point, I do think it was down execution-wise from the secondary. I'm with that. I agree with it. I'm just not sure if it was like anything where I'm like, oh, I'm worried. I didn't see a bunch of blown coverages at all. The one screen pass to Mario Anderson where he went in and did that hurdle for the touchdown, we blew that coverage. That was a misstep for sure. But other than that, I didn't see a bunch of blown coverages out there. There were guys on guys. We just weren't always quite getting where we needed to be. You know what I mean? It was close, but just not quite. So I think that's stuff you can clean up. Knowing that they were in the position they were supposed to be in, that's reassuring to me. I'm not worried about the defense after this game any more than I was before this game, right? I'm still pretty confident. The numbers are still really good. They look really good. They just look better on the eye test. You can just tell that they're playing a higher level of football out there. And that comes from, as I mentioned before, Armstrong's schemes, man. They're really, really solid. And this just really comes down to execution. So that's really all I got on the defense. Like I said, pretty short and sweet. But I think that really, kind of sums up what we're seeing is we're being coached to do the right things. It's how well do we do them on the field, right? And that's what I think hopefully will continue to get better with time. And we might be talking even as soon as the end of this season about, man, the defense really stepped up. I'm really interested to see what the bye week does for them. I think that could really be good. Georgia might want to watch out for this defense next week. I got a feeling they might bring something, but we'll see what happens. All right. So with and I said next week, 2 weeks, excuse me.
I know what you meant.
Yeah, I got you. Thanks. With that, let's move on to our visor throw segment. So my visor stayed pretty clean last week. I think it's going to stay relatively clean this week. Again, it's not too bad here. Number one, I already talked about in defense, road execution. While it was much better on offense and in regards to penalties, only 6 penalties for 48 yards, and at least one of those was complete BS, and we'll get into that later. But it was really much better, but the defense was simply not good enough. I mean, they just weren't good enough. That's not going to beat most teams, right? We got lucky that we were playing a subpar defense on the other side of the ball. We're not winning a ton of shootouts at Florida, right? We got away with this win. But if we are reliant on our offense to win us games, especially on the road, I'm sorry, that's not how this team is built. That's not a recipe for success in the long run, right? It's just not. So that's something that I think has really got to get cleaned up. And it's really shown through in the road games, especially so far. That the defense just kind of doesn't seem like the same thing as they are at home. So my number 2 here is the Zebras. Man, they were abysmal. They were absolutely terrible in this game. I hoped for better after last week. I didn't include this in my visor throw last week. We just kind of berated them on the move back you suck section, which we will again. But it's getting on the visor this week, man. They were just horrific. I'll leave the detail for that section. I won't get into it, but just overall, man, that's one of the most poorly officiated games I've seen in quite a while. It was really, really bad. Not only did they have several calls or no calls, depending on which one you want to talk about, that were really poor, but there was inconsistency. They're calling PI at this point for one thing, they're calling roughing the passer at this point for one thing, and then the next time the same thing happens, they don't call it. Like, what? If you're gonna be not good, at least be consistently not good. Like they were all over the map in this game. I mean, it was tough to watch. So that's number 2 for me. And lastly, this one really stuck out to me. So I know this wasn't Ricky's intent. I'm not saying anything about Ricky on this. Ricky had a quote, and I might be paraphrasing a little here. I didn't exactly quote it word for word, but the gist of it was, First time, so he talked about before the game. He said, it's the first time I looked around the locker room before a game and everyone looked ready. So he got quoted saying that. So let's just let that sink in a little bit. Game 7 is the first game you looked around the locker room and everybody looked ready. I mean, listen, hey, I'm glad everybody looked ready and they seemed ready. I will agree. They played much better than what we've seen on the road before. I mean, the road woes with this team were looking pretty bad. But why in the hell is that the first time that that's happened this season? Are you kidding me? That's nuts. So that quote, I think I think he meant it in a way like, yeah, man, we got it this time. We're ready to go. And he was right. And yeah, that's great. But why did it take 7 games? So that's what I've got for visor throw. You'll notice nothing about play design because I'm giving that a pass. I still think there are some things in this offense that are questionable, but I won't say anything after this week, man. It was fun to watch. It was fun to see. I didn't have to get mad at the offense for not doing things that I thought made sense pretty much at all during the game. I thought it was really pretty good. So that was nice. So what do you got? What's your visor looking like this week? How dirty we getting?
I'm getting dirty. I'm getting real dirty.
Okay.
First is Spencer Rattler lowering his shoulder on Jason Marshall, right? On the first South Carolina drive. Mm-hmm. All right. First of all, a quarterback should not be lowering his shoulder like that. Secondly, Jason Marshall, who are you to take that from Spencer Rattler? That's it. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. Fair enough. Jordan Castell getting trucked by Simon in the fourth quarter. Now, I know it's slow to get up, left the game, but listen, if we're going to play with the physicality that we need to play with, that we want to play with, that we should play with, ain't nobody trucking you. I'm sorry. No one.
Yeah, Anderson. That's your job, right?
Right? Exactly. Anderson hurdling Mitchell for a touchdown, right? Late in the second quarter, make it 21-21 before the half. I'm like, what? Like, what a poor angle to take it to try and wrap up this guy's leg. This guy's just been torching you all day long because he's smaller, low center of gravity.
Yep.
Anyways, bad angle, whatever. Montrell Johnson. You know what? I hope this is not a recurring theme. He did it a couple times earlier on the season. More specifically, he missed 2 passes on 3rd and short.
Yep.
On the out, going to the right side of the field, turning back, and it was not a bad throw. Just was looking downfield, turned his head, eyes this way, ball this way, hands this way, missed it. Yep. And then the second one, if you remember, now Mertz didn't have to snap that football, right? Going down towards the end of the quarter. But it was a quick out with he snapped it with maybe 2 seconds left. Over to Montrell left side, and Montrell was like, I don't know if it was the sun in his eyes or what, but it just went right off his hands, helmet, boom, went up in the air, quarter over. But those were both 3rd and short. That could have resulted in a much needed first down, an easier first down completion that we had. So Montrell, for as good as the things he does, sometimes tends to have a little issue with catch the football in the backfield. I don't know. I hope it's not a recurring issue. Okay. 4 for 15 on 3rd down.
Mm-hmm.
4 for 15 on 3rd down. Especially what I read off earlier. You're at almost 50% in the first half, right? And 19% in the second half. Come on, guys. The O-line. It's almost like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bueller. Now, again, they did what they had to do. They patched it up with duct tape, glue, some chewing gum, and a paper clip. They made it work. They gave Graham enough time in certain situations to make incredible throws. But at the same time, I don't want Graham taking the hits he's taken. Yep. As a graham cracker, he will crumble. It's only a matter of time before he crumbles. And especially if you have 2 offensive line coaches, if you took the money to add another positional coach at that position, and not a special teams coach, you have an analyst, your O-line should be a place of strength. Just saying.
Yep.
71 rushing yards. Like I think we mentioned earlier, South Carolina's given up 142, 143 on the season, and we walk away with 71. I thought that was a missed opportunity.
Agreed. Good
Missed,
call out there.
right? Right. South Carolina, right? I mean, 126th in FBS. 126th in FBF. They're averaging 87 yards per game. They had 89 yards rushing themselves by halftime.
Yeah.
And ended with 152 yards.
Yeah.
Cannot do it. Cannot do it. So, anyways, again, Gator Nation, I'm trying not to get too overhead when it comes to the visor throw, but at the end of the day, it's a great win. It's 41 points. It's on the road. It's hostile territory. But at the end of the day, we do have some things that just grind your gears. And so
Yeah.
that's my visor throw. It's pretty dirty. I need a lot of Tide and OxyClean. So that is what it is.
Sure. Yes, sir. You might have to send that one to cleaners, buddy.
Sure.
But I get it, and I think they're all fair points. And I think that's that's the thing, right? And you hope that some of these things continue to get better as we go
Yes.
forward. And that's really what we need to look for, especially with the games that we have upcoming, right? We won't get into too much of it. I think we'll probably talk a lot more. We're gonna do something different for the bye week next week. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be yet. That's TBD, but we'll certainly have something for you during the bye week there. But I think that's a real point of what do we want to look for to really happen, going forward with some of these things that we keep seeing, right? Or maybe we don't keep seeing, but we've seen, a few times, or, some of the inconsistencies. How do we clean some of that stuff up? And how do we get some better execution on some of this stuff going forward? So anyway, with that, we'll flip it over to recruiting here. What you got for your recruiting update? Anything hatching?
Yeah. The only thing I can say is DJ Lagway is doing DJ Lagway like things. And he needs he probably needs to get the 10% of the 10% of a 10% that's going by the 10%, whatever that number is. Micah Burrow. I mean, I know a lot of people know that name, remember that name. Obviously, he was committed to us, then he decommitted. Napier said it was a mutual decommitment. He was homesick, wanted to be closer to Georgia, this, that, and the other. Right now, Georgia's still leading that 67.5%. We're at 30.5%. Michigan's at 2%. He will be at Florida, Georgia. He will be and wants to be at the Swamp when we play Arkansas, right? Where the Gators will unveil their all black unis, right? In the salute to those who serve game. So that's going to be awesome. And Micah was quoted by this on 3 saying, I just had to take a step back and make sure I made the right decision. But he goes on to say, I do know if I end up in Gainesville, I'll be good.
Nice.
Here's the hope in Gator Nation.
Yeah, I've got a little concern here. So first of all, you're right on about Lagway. For those that don't know, Lagway is tearing up his high school season. He has currently, I don't remember the yardage number. It's well over 1,000 already through 8 games passing. He has 41 touchdowns and 4 picks. Hello. So the kid is ripping it up right now. And I think that's on like 203 attempts also. So, your interception percentage there is what, like 2%? That's pretty good. So really, really good stuff that he's putting out so far in his numbers. He's actually moved up in both the recruiting ranking services. He was already a 5-star in one. He's now a 5-star in both, and is a top 20 recruit in both, I believe now. So pretty impressive stuff Mr. Lagway is doing. So nice call out on that. I didn't have that, but I just happen to know all those numbers off the top of my head, believe it or not. I read too much stuff.
Yeah, man, that's good.
So the only thing I have here is a little concerning. Multiple commits. Now this is going to happen, and I understand that, but it's just a little unsettling. Maybe concerning is not the right word. Maybe unsettling is a better word. Multiple commitments getting offers from both Texas and Georgia. Guys that were already committed to us that did not have offers from those programs, and now they do. So it concerns me how many of those we're going to be able to hold on to when you got all these top schools coming after them. So it's Xavier Filsaime has gotten an offer from Texas. The other receiver that we have a 4-star that we actually flipped from Florida State, I believe. Oh no, that was the other one. Never mind. I'm sorry. Isaiah Williams is the one who got an offer from Texas as well. And then you have Nasir Johnson, who's a nose tackle that we're potentially bringing in, and he got an offer from Georgia recently. They're trying to take him away. So, I know we're looking at some flips too. We're probably going to need a couple because I think we might have a couple on our own. I hope it's not Phil Simi. I really want him. And I really want all the guys to be committed. Really, I love the class. I think it's fantastic, but I'm not naive enough to think that we're going to get every single one of them. So, if we do, amazing. But that'd really speak to Billy's recruiting if we do. But my guess is we lose at least one or two, and that's probably something that we're going to need to make up for, right? So that's pretty much it as it comes to recruiting. So we will move it on here to the Pride of the Sunshine. Man, this is going to be a fun one for me to talk about this week. Really, really proud of the culture that we put on display in this game, during the game, after the game. Really loved that this team yet again had zero quit. We've said it before, right? I've never seen this team quit under Napier, not once. And this time, that lack of quit and that grit at the end of the game, as he talked about Mertz's gritty performance, right? This time it got us the W. And man, was that fun to see. Oh, buddy, that was just seeing that, will to not quit playing and not, do anything but try to execute at the highest level, and seeing that come out to fruition in a win. Yes, made my heart smile, man. That was fantastic. As I mentioned already, also loved hearing Billy talk about Mertz after the game. And then also what Mertz had to say about how much he's enjoying being a Gator, man. What better things can you say for culture than your quarterback saying he's the most fun he's ever had in his life? And it's not because they're necessarily winning every game. Like, it's just playing is the fun for him. Man, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty awesome. It really, again, speaks to, we've said it before, the culture that Billy's building here, the things that he's doing. You're seeing that paying off. And I love that it's coming together, or starting to come together in the ways that it has now. Does this mean I think we're going to win out from here on? Hell no. No chance, right? But I do think that, if you get yourself in a game, right, late, this team is going to put forth the effort it needs to put forth to at least give you a shot to win, and that's all you can ask for. So I'm really really pleased with what I'm seeing there. So I should have had you go first on this one because I need to go first on the next one, but we'll that'll be okay. What do you got for me on Pride of the Sunshine, bud?
Yeah, man, all good, all good. Yeah, great observation. I can say the same thing. It was interesting to hear Napier say we've built some toughness, we've got some resolve, the relationships have gotten closer. All the struggles that we've had this season have galvanized the group. And this was also interesting, piggybacking off of what you quoted Ricky Pearsall saying.
Yep.
So we had the best week of practice. We're building something with better days ahead. I haven't seen the guys this locked in. Very interesting.
Yeah,
Very
it
interesting.
It was.
So that's what it was. Mertz. Say no more. He came here on a mission. He's a product of his work. So the coaching staff's so impressed with him. And Napier said something really, really interesting. I'm more so impressed with him less than 1 year in our system. And Napier went on to saying something to the effect of, there's a reason why we got hired here, because our system works, it's efficient, it's effective, and especially with good O-line play. Interesting. So, but Mertz never flinched, took hit after hit, came up, cringing a couple times, but never flinched. It was really nice to see AA come over and give Napier a big handshake and a pat on the shoulder after the first touchdown. I'm sure, Double A would have liked to have had the defense play a little bit better for him in the support, right? That complimentary football, but that's all right. Trey Smack, field goals of 48, 44, 28, and 54 yards. I know, folks, he had one block, but that's not on him. That's more so on the line, the penetration that was there, and another play regarding that block kick that we'll get to. Opening kickoff return. Who was it returned by? Tyreek Sapp.
Yeah, that was great.
For 16 yards, and the sideline went nuts. The big fella returning a kickoff.
Rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, baby.
Right, exactly, right? Another thing I had for Pride of Sunshine was down 10 with 9:11 to go on the road in the SEC. I don't think we have to say anything else outside of that. A couple of trends that were broken in this game. Gators 1-7 away from home, including 1 of 14 in the prior regime. 1-9 when tied or trailing with 14 minutes, 55 seconds left to play. 1-6 when being outrushed. 0-3 when allowing 300 plus passing yards to the opposing quarterback. 0-2 when gaining less than 100 yards rushing. 3-9 when allowing 21 plus points. All right. The Florida Gators had lost 17 consecutive games when trailing by at least 10 points. And I'm happy to report that streak is over. Completely over.
That's a
right?
good one. 17 straight, you said?
17 straight.
Wow. Yeah, that's a nice one to break because that goes
Right?
back a lot of years to be how many times we were down 10 in
Unfortunately.
17 games.
Bingo. And then just Pearsall, seeing some of those South Carolina fans doing the Gator chomp prematurely, he literally leaned in to the offense and said, "We're going to go down and win this thing." And by golly, they did. The Gators are now 10-0 under Napier when leading after the third quarter. So B, you mentioned earlier, 10 games over 30 points, right? 10 wins.
Yeah.
They're 10-0 when leading after the third quarter. Really, really cool. And then I know we know what it is, but we haven't mentioned it in a while. The Florida Gators have scored in 443 consecutive games. Pride of the Sunshine. There we go.
Longest streak. I love it. Good stuff, man. That's really great. You had a lot of good things in there. I really enjoyed that.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. All right. So now for something not as good. Officiating. Oh man. I don't know if you found out what crew this was. I could not find it out. I tried to look it up. So maybe you'll be able to call that out during your segment of this, but I'll get us started on the move back you suck. Multiple holding calls not called yet again. So multiple holding penalties, I guess I should say, that were not flagged yet again. But the biggest one of all, and I mean, there were a lot, by the way. I don't have them all called out here, but there were a lot. The biggest one was the last TD for South Carolina. Miguel Mitchell was absolutely held in his pursuit of that player. Clearly had an angle to get the ball carrier. I don't remember which receiver had it there. At approximately about the 10-yard line. He even got back into the play because the guy did let him go after just a second, right? That was just probably how I guess he got away with it. I don't know. I don't know how he got away with half the things they got away with in this game, but whatever. He got back into the play and went back down and tried to make the tackle at the goal line. But he absolutely would have had the angle and the leverage to make that tackle just to push him out of bounds. The guy was right by the sideline. I mean, terrible call. That was or terrible no call. That was a really, really bad missed one and actually cost points, right? So there's the significance of it. That play cost points. So that's big, and you can't have that. Another play that cost points, potentially anyway, but I think Trey would have made it considering his percentages so far. That was illegal leverage on that blocked kick. You are not allowed, I will read the rule, no defensive player in an attempt to block, bat, or catch a kick may 1, step, jump, or stand on a player, place hands on a player to get leverage for additional height. That is a penalty, and you cannot do that. You can clearly see on the replay that he pushes down on the back of that player. He then goes over the top of him, which is also illegal, by the way. You can't do that either. And then he goes in and blocks the kick. So there were really two different ways they could have flagged that based on the reading of the rule. I didn't have the other part of it in here, but it's also illegal to go over the top of a player, even if you do not touch him. So, yeah, that was illegal and should have been flagged and was not, and blocked field goal. Not okay. Not okay. As I mentioned before, lack of consistency, especially on the PI calls. Both teams were flagged for it, but South Carolina got away with at least 2 of them that should have been flagged later in the game. I don't know what we were doing there. That was ridiculous. And then maybe my biggest grinding of my gears on this one is roughing, not roughing. I don't know what's roughing. Apparently we don't have a clear definition for it in the rule book because they were horrible about calling any kind of consistency with this. They did flag him once on Mertz, but he had at least 2 more that he should have been flagged on. He was hit late once. Another time he was hit low. It wasn't late, but it was low, which is clearly a penalty. It was below the knee, no question. It's completely unacceptable to have a no call on that. I mean, Mertz got up limping. He could barely walk, and there was no flag. Get out of here. Like, that's not okay. We protect the quarterbacks now. That's one of the things that we do. It came down from the NFL a couple of years ago, right? NFL's been doing it for a while. Can't hit the head, can't hit the legs. You talked about it last week. They hit the legs, no flag. Okay. And then you get flagged for roughing Rattler on the last play of the game. Now, I'll say I thought the first one was a little questionable, to be honest. And it was kind of one of those, again, where it was like, well, is that too long? I don't know. This one, no way was it too long. He threw the ball, left his hand, and he was hit almost immediately. It was less than a second, no question. And the hit was totally clean. He hit him. He didn't lay on top of him. He didn't tackle him. He didn't put his weight on him. He didn't hit him low. He didn't hit him high. I can go on and on and on. That was not a penalty. It was called a penalty. That was bullcrap. Really tired of these refs over the last 2 games now. Needs to get better. That's all I'm going to say. You're up.
I'll take it. I'll take it. By the way, referee Steve Marlowe. Steve Marlowe. Umpire John Short. Linesman Ralph Green. Back judge Wayne Gautney. Field judge Andy Britton. Side judge Justin LaRue. And line judge Chris Snuggs. There you go. Put out the APB. So
they were definitely MIA.
so B, you're not wrong. And here's the funny thing, people: consistency, right? It's a simple word. It's not an easy word. Simple, not easy. Consistency. The first possession, 3rd and 1 we had was with the QB sneak. If you guys look very closely, Mazzucchello is lined up to the right of Mertz, the right of Slaughter. He went a little bit early, no flag. On South Carolina's first drive after we scored, coming back, 2 holding plays on their offensive line that allowed some things to happen. No call, no call. Mertz to Pearsall on 3rd and 10 on Florida's 5th possession. No DPI. It was a big tug, right? In that same possession, 2 plays later, you had a really bad low tackle on Mertz. That was the first low tackle that he had that there was no flag on at all. All right. Now, again, did they call one? Yes. But again, for some of the other ones that were more obvious, especially in the second half, no, none of it. And here's the thing, folks. When you look at roughing the passer, I know there's some people who think, well, that's football. You're getting hurt and this. Okay, fine. No problem. They modified it to the point where hitting the quarterback in the helmet, hitting the quarterback below the knees, and also when you tackle the quarterback, do not land or place your body weight on the quarterback. That's how a lot of collarbones get broken. Well, guess what? Both of those tackles, especially in the second half, when you look at what those defensive linemen did, it was right at the knee and below because they were going for his legs to take him out. Nasty? No, but regardless of the fact, did they not see it because there was too much personnel around? Were their eyes clouded? Was their line of sight slightly off? Who knows? Whatever it was, there was a lot of misses in that game. The roughing the passer on Rattler, I tell you what, this was really tough because when you look at when he released the ball, you can count barely to 1001 before he gets hit. He gets hit at his chest. He is pushed down. I know, not placed down, pushed down. But again, not at his head, not below the knees, and body weight was not put on him. I thought that was just a weak roughing the passer call when you look at the previous 2 roughing the passer calls that were made. Again, consistency. The field goal that was blocked, leverage. You know, it's funny. I go back to the Kentucky game. The one back judge didn't see it because he thought the player leapt over. And then when you look at it from the other side, it's like, well, leaping, leverage. It clearly states that you cannot gain leverage, and they definitely gained a lot of leverage, especially by placing their hand on the shoulder of the opposing team to get that lift. So it's really tough, man. I get it. Bang, bang plays. There's human eyes in play, but again, with 8 on the field, plus eyes in the sky and eyes in the booth, there's got to be a little bit better consistency when you look at the SEC, the style of play, and obviously all those TV dollars coming in for the amount of eyes that watch.
Yep.
Just a little bit better on the consistency. That's all.
Agreed. All right. Well, now that we done got that out the way, let's wrap this thing
It's
up. Give me your thoughts. Where you think we're at as a team heading into this bye? Great to go into this bye with such a great win, and yeah, give me your thoughts on where we're at, going forward with the Gators this season.
My hope is that what just happened on Saturday and the momentum that comes from that is that it's not lost on a bye week. I hope that that type of intensity, that type of hope, that type of spirit, that type of energy gets transferred over 2 weeks from now. I feel like 5-2 headed into the bye week. I felt like the ceiling was pretty much 6-1, and the absolute worst we probably could have been 4-3. But guess what? Last year entering the bye, we were 4-3. So this year we're at 5-2. Right? We're on top the SEC East. We're obviously not first. We're not Georgia. We know Missouri's got a. It's just interesting to see what is happening in the SEC East this year, outside of Missouri. Sorry, but 5-2 headed into the bye week. It was just a much needed win for the road win, for everything else that's happening. Hopefully, we can build on that. Rest. I think we need rest. I think we need some good rest, and by Billy and the crew changing up the schedule, focusing more on rest, getting there a day early, half a day early, whatever it was. Hopefully that's a good thing. When I look at the way that South Carolina prepared for us on their bye week and how prepared they were for the run game, how prepared they were for a lot of other things to play us so well, how prepared they were with their offensive attack to throw as many things as they did. I hope we take this bye week to prepare for Georgia just as much, especially knowing that Georgia will be without one massive offensive weapon. So I like where things are headed. Happy for 5-2. Again, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy. We know Georgia's going to be a tough game. Will it be a loss? More than likely. But if we can go in there and spark some magic and kind of, pick up where Vandy struck him with first last Saturday, talk about a magical upset that could be for this college football season. I don't know. But either way, I like where things are headed. I like the energy. And hopefully this week in practice and leading up to next week, we can just build on it, man.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think the practice is an interesting piece, right? There's been a lot of talk, a lot of media around the practices and how those are going. So if we can put together, to your point, right? I hear you on the don't want to lose momentum, right? But if we can put together a couple solid weeks of practice going into this game, and they're really starting to or continuing to dial in and really, get this thing together, man,
Right.
I don't know. I mean, you could really see this get him to be a run. I'm certainly not going to call for it. I'm with you. I absolutely think it's a loss. But man, I'll tell you what, if the D plays better and the offense plays anything that resembles what they just did, that's a tough out. That's a tough out for anybody for the rest of the season, quite frankly. I don't care who we play. So it's going to be interesting. What a great win, man. What a great win. I don't want to lose sight of that and all this analysis and everything else that we do. We take it very seriously, and we obviously don't want to be, sunshine and daisies for every win and doom and gloom for every loss, right? The whole goal of looking at this from an analytical standpoint and from really, kind of seeing what the plays on the field actually showed us and instead of just how they made us feel, right? It's really important that we, again, don't get too high or too low depending on the result. But this game was pivotal for our season. I don't see how we get above 500 without this game. And frankly, it's possible we don't even get past 500, even with this win, right? That 6-6 is still very much on the table with you look at the slate of games we have left. It is absolutely possible. I'm not calling for it. I don't necessarily think that's what happens. But man, I definitely think that we're going to have more losses than wins closing this thing out. I think that's almost a certainty. If we don't, that's great, but I don't see it. I think 3 losses going in the last 5 is minimum at this point from the looks of it on the schedule and how these teams look that we're going to play. But as I said, man, if this team, especially on the road, can continue to execute better, and if the defense can start executing a little better on the road as well, it's going to be an interesting watch. We'll give them hell along the way, that's for sure. So that's all I got. I'm really excited to see where things go from here. Really looking forward to seeing what we can come up with for things we want to see in the second half of the season. I think that'll make for an interesting episode next week. And yeah, we'll go from there. So with that, bye week is upcoming. So there's no keep it or pitch it, as I mentioned, for the Georgia game. But we will do a recap of what we did last week. And we're also going to take you on a recap of how we started the season out with keep it or pitch it and where we're looking at with those picks, at least so far. Right now, those are full season picks. So it's okay if they're not, completely done yet or whatever the case might be. So for this week, I went, or I'm sorry, Randy went 1-2, and I went 2-1. So it moves our yearly to 7-10 for Randy and 10-7 for me, respectively. So still pretty tight, pretty tight. Could still go either way as far as that stuff goes. But obviously we're just having fun with it, so it's all good. Just to bounce back and look at our keep it or pitch it for South Carolina for last week. The ones that we had were, get to it here. UF third down defense ranks 9th in the country, whereas USC ranked 103rd. Yikes on that, because we didn't do well on third down at all. However, South Carolina has a slightly better third down conversion percentage, 35.8 to our 34.8. But UF will have a better third down conversion percentage in this game. I pitched it, you kept it. Yeah, South Carolina was 50. We were, 28, something like that, you said? Yeah, not good.
Right.
So that one worked out to be a pitch it. South Carolina is allowing 4.4 sacks per game this year. Florida will have at least 4 sacks this game. Well, as you mentioned, that offensive line got a bit better. I kept this. You pitched it. You were right. Pitch it was. We only had the 2. They got 4, but but that's another conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lastly, South Carolina has the 15th ranked passing offense in the country, 312 yards per game. Ironically, they got 313 against us, dead on their average. UF will hold South Carolina to under 250 passing. I pitched it, you kept it. And obviously, as I said, 313. So there you go. That's the breakdown from last week. So
unreal.
Yeah, pretty unreal, man. It definitely could have been better there. I didn't expect him to get over 300 for the record when I pitched it. But, hey, what are you going to do? All right.
Yeah.
So now let's go back and look at some of these results so far from our keep it or pitch it from the beginning of the season. So Graham Mertz, this is number 1. Graham Mertz will be mediocre, sub 63% completion rate, and 10 or more picks at the QB position, and we will be forced to produce with our rushing offense or not at all on offense. We both pitched this to start the year. Pitch it is definitely correct so far. As we have discussed, Mertz has been a very bright spot in this season. 76.2% completion thus far. Did fall down a little with this last game, but still excellent numbers. 12 TD, 2 picks, and they were both on tipped balls. Phenomenal. At some point throughout that's number 1. And then number 2, at some point throughout the season, we will have at least 5 freshmen starting. This is the one we've been talking about, right? On either side of the ball. I kept this. Randy pitched it. I am happy to say, as of the Vandy game, we have had 5 freshmen start. So that happened real quick. But we did get there, whether it be via injury or just the kind of the youth that's getting involved in this team. But we now have 5 freshmen start for the season. So there you go. Number 3, total passing yards will increase by 30% over last year. This production will come up from better passing concepts and better receiver play. Definitely better receiver play. I'm not sure about the passing concepts yet, but hey, we're getting there. Yep. I pitched this. Randy kept it, and so far Randy is correct. We are up over 100 yards a game, folks. We're at 327 passing through 6 games. We were at 223 for the season last year. Let that one sink in. That's pretty impressive.
Unreal.
So, yeah, pretty good stuff there. Not hating it at all. This last game obviously severely helped that, but nonetheless, hey, we'll take it. Kicking game will be improved from 22 season. Field goal percentage will be at least 85% make, and punt yards will be 50 yards per punt at a minimum. I kept it. Randy did as well. We're split here so far as the results. Field goal percentage is over 85 since we moved Trey in anyway, obviously. Not going to look at Mahalik on that because he's obviously not the guy that we're going to have finishing out the year. No. But the yards per punt is still sub 50, though it is getting better. Liking what I'm seeing more and more each week from Mr. Crawshaw. So Number 5, offense will finish the season ranked lower than they were last year. I kept this, but I said, but it's very close. Randy, I believe, pitched this. So far, they are lower. The site we used on this is actually a different site than we're using for a lot of our other sources of stuff. It's like a total team ranking. We are currently 67th through 6 weeks of the season, so 58th to 67th. So it is down a little. I think that has the potential to come up, though, with what we saw this week. What do you think? Think that's going to move in the right direction?
Yeah, man. That's the hope.
Maybe not next week against Georgia's defense, in fairness, but after that, hopefully we can knock it on up there.
Sure.
Defense will be ranked better than the offense in their overall rating. Now, last year we were 58th on offense and 87th on defense. Yikes. We definitely both kept this. We thought this was absolutely going to happen. It is happening. We are currently 31st through 6 weeks of the season. So that is drastic improvement. That is up 56 spots as of right now. So again, we'll see if we can maintain that as we continue to go. I think we will. Something very close to that number, maybe within no more than 5 or 6 movement spots down and potentially even more than that up. So we'll see what happens. Last but not least, Florida will not cover, this one was just kind of for fun, but Florida will not cover their preseason DraftKings prediction of winning only 5.5 games. We both pitched this one pretty hard. We were not believers in that at all. It should be noted, as it was said in here, that we are playing the hardest Power 5 schedule in the country. 6 preseason top 25 teams, at least that many that we're going to face during the season. And 4 were in the top 15 to start the year. We are currently, of course, 5-2. We need one more win to get us over that mark. So
bingo.
Here's hoping that happens. So there's a little update for you on how we're tracking on all those different things. It looks like we're again kind of split on a lot of them. But I think it's going to be interesting to see where they round out as the season comes to an end. But fortunately, we still have some more football before that happens. Because man, it would be sad if it was over already.
Gosh, right?
So, any closing thoughts from you there on just things overall going into the bye week? I know we already talked about where you think the team is, but is there anything you want to close out with there?
Nah, B, really, really good show, man. Thanks for the points that you mentioned. Really, really good points across. We had a lot of back and forth on this one, especially when it came to a lot of the events after Oh My and with Gator Bait and the Chomp section. But a lot of good things to build on. Road dub, can't complain. 41 points. Just build on it. Just do your job, build on it, play for each other, and get better. And I hope what you mentioned earlier about Scooby, I hope it's just a little glitch. I hope it's just a confidence thing that we can correct and get back on the board and get him to eating and feasting again. But yeah, man, just really excited for this next 2 weeks to see how they prepare for the Dogs.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. And we'll have some good stuff to talk about next week on that for sure. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Really enjoyed the back and forth on this one for sure, and really on all of them. Again, we say it all the time, but we're really just doing this because we love doing it. Thank everybody who's taken the time to listen. We really do appreciate it, and we really hope you're enjoying it as much as we are. I think that'll be difficult because we're really having a great time, but I really hope everyone listening is really having as much fun as we are doing it. So. With that being said, we'll just go ahead and do our sign off here wherever you are and whenever you may be listening. Thank you for taking the time, and we'll see you around, Gator Nation.